had been waiting for 3 hours in the cold mountain air. His camera sat ready on its tripod, pointed at the dark sky. He was hopping to photograph the rare birds that flew through this valley only once every 5 years. The night was quiet. The stars were bright. He pulled his jacket and sipped his cold coffee. Then something changed. A light appeared in the sky. At first thought it was a shooting star, but shooting stars did not change direction. This light moved left, then right, then began falling fast toward the earth. It grew brighter and brighter until it had to cover his eyes. The crash shook the ground beneath his feet. Birds flew away screaming into the night. The sound was like thunder mixed with breaking glass. A cloud of dust and dirt rose from the valley below. Stood frozen for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. Every part of his brain told him to stay where he was, to call someone, to wait for help. But something else pulled at him. Someone might be hurt down there. Someone might need help. He grabbed his flashlight and started running down the mountain. The path was rough and dangerous in the dark, slipped twice and cut his hands on sharp rocks, but he kept going. The smell of burning reached his nose first, then he saw it. It was not a meteor, it was not a plane, it was something else entirely. The object was smooth and silver, shaped like a teardrop. It was about the size of a small bus. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in blue and purple. One side had cracked open, and a thick liquid that glowed like moonlight was leaking onto the ground. Stopped breathing. His mind could not accept what his eyes were seeing. This was a spaceship, an actual spaceship from somewhere beyond Earth. He should run. He should call the police, the army, someone, but then he heard it. A small sound, a weak cry of pain coming from inside the broken ship. Someone was alive in there. Moved forward without thinking. He climbed over the twisted metal and looked inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. A woman lay among the wreckage. At least she looked mostly like a woman. Her skin was pale lavender, soft like flower petals. Her hair was silver and long, spread around her like water. She wore clothes that looked expensive and royal, covered in small gems that still sparkled despite the damage. But something was very wrong with her. Dark lines like black veins spread across her neck and face. They pulsed slowly, growing longer even as watched. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Her eyes were closed and her beautiful face was twisted in pain. She was dying. Did not need to be a doctor to see that. He climbed inside carefully, pushing aside broken pieces of the ship. The woman did not move. Up close, he could see tears on her cheeks. Even unconscious, she was crying. Did not know what to do. He could not speak her language. He did not know her biology. He had no medicine, no tools, nothing that could help an alien dying from something he could not understand. But he could not just watch her die alone. He knelt beside her and took her hand in his. It was cold, so cold like holding ice. He wrapped both of his hands around hers, trying to share some of his warmth. He did not have words, so he just held on. He wanted her to know that she was not alone, that someone was here, that someone cared. Something happened. Felt heat building in his chest. It spread down his arms and into his hands. For a moment he thought he was having a heart attack, but the heat did not hurt. It felt like sunlight. It felt like love. It flowed out of him and into the dying woman. The dark veins on her skin stopped spreading. They began to shrink, slowly at first, then faster. The black lines pulled back like shadows running from light. Color returned to her face. Her breathing became deeper and steadier. The woman's eyes opened. They were gold like pure sunlight. They stared at with shock and confusion. She looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face. Her mouth opened, and she spoke a single word in a language he had never heard. Then her eyes closed again, and she fell into a deep sleep. Sat there for a long time, still holding her hand. His mind was blank. He did not understand what had just happened. He did not understand any of this. All he knew was that this woman had been dying and now she was not. The night grew colder. Knew he could not leave her here. The ship was broken and would not protect her from the weather. Wild animals might come, drawn by the strange smells. He needed to move her somewhere safe. His cabin was not far. It was small and simple, but it was warm and dry. Moving carefully, lifted the woman in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, like she was made of air and light instead of flesh and bone. He carried her out of the wrecked ship and up the mountain path. The stars above watched silently as a human carried an alien princess to safety. Neither of them knew it yet, but this night would change everything. Not just for them, but for two civilizations that had never met before. In the darkness of the valley, the broken ship continued to leak its glowing liquid. And somewhere deep in space, a signal was already traveling outward, carrying news of a crash on a small blue planet. Help was coming, but so were questions that had no easy answers. 3 days passed. Barely slept during that time. He watched over the alien woman constantly, checking her breathing, making sure she was comfortable. He gave her water when her lips looked dry, dripping it slowly into her mouth. He kept the fire burning to keep the cabin warm. She slept like someone who had not rested in years. Sometimes she would cry in her sleep, speaking words could not understand. Other times she would smile softly, and he wondered what she was dreaming about. On the third morning, she opened her eyes. Was making soup when he heard movement behind him. He turned and found her sitting up, staring at her own hands with wide eyes. She touched her face, her neck, the places where the dark veins had been. Her fingers trembled. Then she looked around the small cabin at the wooden walls, the simple furniture, the fire crackling in the corner. Her golden eyes were full of confusion. Raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. He pointed at himself. He said clearly, "My name is." She watched his lips move. Then she pointed at herself and spoke. The word was long and musical, with sounds mouth could not make. He tried to repeat it but failed badly. This made her smile just a little, the first smile he had seen from her. She tried again, slower this time, breaking it into pieces. The closest could get was, she nodded, accepting this. They spent the next hour trying to communicate. Drew pictures in the dirt floor, a ship falling from the sky, a person lying hurt, another person helping, watched carefully and nodded. She understood. Then she drew her own pictures, a great palace among the stars, many ships, a crown. She pointed at herself in the crown. His heart skipped. She was royalty. He had saved some kind of alien princess. Stood up suddenly and walked to the window. She looked at the sun, the trees, the mountains. Everything was strange to her. Everything was new. When she turned back, there were tears in her eyes again. She touched her neck where the dark veins had been. She drew a picture of herself with those black lines covering her whole body. Then she drew a skull next to it. Death. She had been dying. Then she drew holding her hand. She drew light coming from his hands into her body. She drew the black lines disappearing. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. Wonder, fear, gratitude, maybe all three. Shook his head and raised his hands. He did not understand how he had helped. He did not have magic powers. He was just a normal person who took photographs of birds. Left the cabin and walked to her crashed ship. Followed, worried she might fall or hurt herself. She was still weak, though much stronger than before. She dug through the wreckage until she found a small silver box. When she opened it, a soft light appeared and suddenly could hear a voice speaking in perfect Korean. "Translation device activated," the voice said. "Language analysis complete." Pressed something on the box and attached it to her ear. She spoke again, and this time understood every word. "Can you hear me now?" Nearly fell over. Yes, I can understand you." Smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Then I must tell you what happened. You deserve to know what you did, even if I do not understand it myself." They sat on a fallen log near the crashed ship. The morning sun was warm on their faces. Spoke, and the little device translated her words perfectly. I am the third princess of the Empire. My people rule 17 star systems. We have technology that you cannot imagine. We have healers who can cure almost any sickness, fix almost any wound. She paused, touching her neck again. But there is one thing we cannot cure. It is called the hollowing, a poison that eats the life force inside a person. Once it begins, nothing can stop it. No medicine, no technology, no prayer. The victim always dies, slowly and painfully over 7 days. Felt cold despite the sun. Someone poisoned you. Yes, there are those in my empire who want my family gone. They put the hollowing in my drink during a celebration. When I felt the poison begin its work, I knew I had no hope. I did not want to die in front of my enemies. I did not want them to watch and smile. So I took a small ship and flew as far as I could. I wanted to die alone, in peace, somewhere no one would ever find me. Her voice broke. Tears ran down her lavender cheeks. I crashed on your world by accident. I thought I would die in that ship. I was ready. The hollowing was almost complete. Then you came. She turned to face directly. You touched me, and the hollowing stopped. It did not just slow down. It disappeared completely. The poison that has killed thousands of my people, that has no cure in all the known galaxy, was destroyed by your touch. Shook his head. I do not have any power. I am nobody special. I just held your hand because you looked scared. I did not want you to be alone. Stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed softly. It was a beautiful sound, like bells ringing. You say that like it is a small thing, she whispered, but perhaps that is exactly why it worked. Did not understand, but he could see in her golden eyes that something had changed. She looked at him now not as a strange creature from an unknown world, but as something else entirely. Something precious. Something impossible. Far above them, beyond the blue sky, a warship was already descending through the stars. People were coming, and they would want answers that neither she nor could give. The sky changed on the 7th day. Was teaching how to cook rice when they heard the sound. It was deep and low, like thunder that would not stop. They ran outside and looked up. Hand found and squeezed tight. A ship was descending through the clouds, but this was not like small crashed vessel. This ship was enormous, larger than any building had ever seen. It blocked out the sun as it came down, casting a shadow over the entire mountain. Lights blinked along its silver surface. Strange symbols glowed bright blue. Was trembling. My people, she whispered. They found me. Looked at her. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet. All around the world, people were panicking. Could imagine the news broadcasts, the military responses, the fear spreading through every city and village. Humanity was learning that they were not alone in the universe, and they were learning it the hard way. The great ship stopped above the valley. A smaller vessel detached from its side and flew down toward them. It landed gently in the clearing near its crashed ship, barely making a sound. A door opened, and figures began walking out. They were tall and beautiful, with skin in shades of lavender and blue. They wore armor that seemed to be made of light itself. Each one carried weapons that could not recognize. They moved like soldiers, careful and ready. One figure walked ahead of the others. He was older, with silver hair and a face marked by many years. His armor was more decorated, covered in symbols and medals. When he saw, he stopped completely. His eyes went wide. Princess, his voice cracked. Is it truly you? Stepped forward. Uncle, I am alive. The old soldier fell to his knees. Right there in the dirt, this powerful warrior knelt before his niece and wept. We thought you were dead. The whole empire mourns you. Your mother has not stopped crying for 5 days. Walked to him and touched his shoulder. Rise, uncle, I am here, I survived. Looked up at her face, studying it closely. His eyes found her neck, where the hollowing should have left its marks. He saw nothing but healthy skin. His expression changed from grief to confusion. "The hollowing," he said slowly. "You were poisoned with the hollowing. Our spies confirmed it. No one survives the hollowing." "I know." "Then how are you standing before me?" Turned and looked at. Every alien soldier followed her gaze, suddenly felt very small under all those eyes. "He saved me," said simply. "This human saved my life." The soldiers murmured among themselves, stood up and walked toward. He was much taller and his presence was intimidating. Fought the urge to run. "You cured the hollowing?" asked. His voice was not angry, but it was intense. "How? Our greatest healers have tried for 10,000 years. What did you do?" Swallowed hard. "I held her hand, that is all. I swear I did nothing else. She was dying and I did not want her to be alone, so I held her hand." Stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to one of his soldiers. "Bring the medical scanner." A soldier handed him a small device, waved it over his body, reading the results on a glowing screen. His face went pale. "There is no trace of the hollowing," he whispered. "Not suppressed, not dormant, gone completely. This is impossible." He turned the scanner toward and waved it over him. The device made strange sounds, frowned and tried again. The same sounds came out. "The scanner cannot read you properly," he said. "You appear to be a simple biological creature, nothing special. But there is something else, a resonance I have never seen before, energy that should not exist in a being like you." Had no answer. He did not understand any of this himself. Took a deep breath. He looked at, then back at. Finally, he made a decision. "The Emperor must know of this. Both of you must come to the Imperial Palace. The Princess, to show she lives, and you, human, to explain what you did." Felt his stomach drop. "I have to go to space." "You saved the life of a princess," said. "That act has consequences whether you understand them or not. You are part of this now. There is no going back." Took's hand again. "I will not let anything bad happen to you," she promised. "You saved my life. By our laws, I owe you everything. I will protect you." Looked at the massive ship hovering in the sky. He looked at the alien soldiers with their strange weapons. He looked at this princess from another world who held his hand like he was the only safe thing in the universe. 1 week ago, he was a simple photographer taking pictures of birds. Now he was about to travel to the stars. "Okay," he said quietly, "I will go with you." They boarded the small vessel and flew up toward the great warship. Watched through a window as his world grew smaller and smaller. He saw the mountains where he had camped. He saw the green forests and blue oceans. He saw the tiny lights of cities where millions of people had no idea that everything was about to change. Then they entered the warship, and Earth disappeared from view. Sat in a room made of metal and light. Everything was strange. The chairs were the wrong shape. The air smelled different. Sounds echoed in unfamiliar ways. Sat beside him. She had not let go of his hand since they boarded. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Yes," admitted, "very afraid." "Good," she said softly. "Fear means you understand how big this is, but you came anyway. That takes courage." Shook his head. "I am not brave. I am just too confused to say no." Laughed. It was the most human sound he had heard from her. That is a kind of bravery, too. The ship shuddered as it began moving. Stars streaked past the windows as they accelerated faster than thought possible. He was leaving his home, his world, everything he knew. He was going to meet an emperor. He had no idea what to say. The Imperial Palace was made of light. That was the only way could describe it. Towers of crystal rose into a purple sky. Bridges of solid gold connected floating platforms. Ships moved through the air like fish swimming in water. Millions of beings walked the streets below, going about their lives in a city that made everything on Earth look like a child's drawing. stood at the window of his guest room trying to breathe normally. He had been given fine clothes to wear, soft fabric in deep blue colors. Servants had brought him food that looked strange but tasted wonderful. Everyone treated him with respect, but he could see the curiosity in their eyes. What is this creature? Their looks seemed to ask. What did he really do? A door opened behind him, entered, and his breath caught in his throat. She wore a gown of white and silver, decorated with gems that seemed to hold their own light. Her silver hair was arranged in a complex style, held by pins made of pure crystal. A thin crown rested on her head. She looked like what she was, a princess of the mightiest empire in the galaxy. "It is time," she said. "The court is assembled. My family is waiting." His legs felt weak. What do I say to an emperor? "The truth," said. "Only the truth. My father values honesty above all things. Tell him what you told me. Tell him you held my hand because you did not want me to die alone." That sounds too simple. Perhaps simple is what they need to hear. They walked together through hallways that seemed to go on forever. Guards stood at every corner, tall and silent in their shining armor. Other nobles passed by, stopping to stare at the human walking beside their princess. Some looked curious, some looked afraid, a few looked angry. Finally, they reached the great doors of the throne room. The doors were 20 meters tall, made of material that looked like frozen starlight. Ancient symbols covered their surface, telling stories in a language could not read. Waited for them there. "Are you ready?" Nodded, did not nod, but he did not run either. The doors opened. The throne room was larger than a sports stadium. Thousands of people filled the space, standing in rows according to their rank. They wore clothes of every color, decorated with symbols of their houses and families. The air was thick with tension and whispered conversations. At the far end of the room, raised above everyone else, sat the imperial family. Emperor was old but powerful. His skin was deep purple, and his eyes burned with inner light. He wore robes of pure white, and a crown of crystal sat upon his head. He looked like a god made flesh. Beside him sat Empress. She was beautiful in a fierce way, with sharp features and silver hair like her daughter. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, and even from far away could see her trembling. To their left stood Prince, the first prince and heir to the throne. He was tall and stern with a soldier's posture. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes followed every step. To their right stood Princess, the second princess. She was younger than, with a rounder face and softer features. She looked like she was about to cry. The room fell silent as walked forward, stayed one step behind her, trying not to trip over his own feet. Every eye in the palace was watching them. Stopped at the base of the throne's platform, she bowed her head. "Father, Mother, I have returned." For a moment, no one moved. The silence was so complete that could hear his own heartbeat. Then the Empress stood up. She walked down the steps slowly as if in a dream. When she reached, she stopped and touched her daughter's face with shaking hands. She traced the lines of his cheeks, her neck, the places where death should have marked her. "My child," whispered, "my baby girl." And then she broke. The Empress of the greatest empire in the galaxy fell into her daughter's arms and wept. Not quiet tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs that echoed through the silent room. She held onto like she would never let go. Emperor rose from his throne. He walked down the steps with slow dignity. But when he reached his wife and daughter, his composure cracked. Tears rolled down his ancient face, catching the light like diamonds. He wrapped his arms around both of them and held on tight. Prince turned away. His shoulders shook. He pressed a hand over his eyes, hiding his face from the crowd, but everyone could see him crying. Princess did not even try to hide. She ran down the steps and threw herself at her sister, laughing and crying at the same time. "I knew it," she kept saying. "I knew you would come back, I knew it." The entire royal family stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, weeping openly before thousands of witnesses. Rules were broken. Protocol was forgotten. None of that mattered. Their daughter, their sister, the one they thought was lost forever, had come home. Stood alone, watching this scene with tears in his own eyes. He had never seen anything so raw, so real, so full of love. These were not monsters from beyond the stars. They were a family, just like any family on Earth. Finally, the Emperor pulled back. He wiped his eyes and looked at. The whole room followed his gaze. "Come forward, human." Walked on shaking legs until he stood before the Emperor. He did not know if he should bow or kneel or what. He just stood there, feeling small. "My daughter tells me you saved her life," said. His voice was strong again, but there was warmth in it now. "She tells me you cured the incurable. How?" Swallowed. "I do not know, Your Majesty. I found her dying in her crashed ship. I could not understand her language. I could not help her with medicine or technology. I had nothing, so I just held her hand. I did not want her to be alone when she died. That is all I did." The Emperor studied him for a long moment. "That is all, no special technique, no hidden power." "No, Your Majesty, I am nobody. I take photographs of birds for a living. I have no power." Looked at his daughter. And yet here she stands, alive, healthy, free of the poison that should have killed her. He turned back to, "Do you know what the hollowing truly is? It is a poison of the soul. It works by eating hope, by consuming the will to live. Our healers have tried everything to stop it, but they always fail because they attack the poison with power, with force. They try to destroy it." The Emperor stepped closer too. "You did not try to destroy anything. You just offered comfort. You offered love without condition, without expectation, without even understanding who you were helping. You gave freely of yourself in a way my people have forgotten is possible." His voice dropped to a whisper. "That is why it worked." The room was completely silent, could not believe what he was hearing. Emperor placed a hand on shoulder. It was heavy and warm. "Your people carry something precious," he said. "Something the galaxy has lost. And for saving my daughter, for giving my family this gift, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid." He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "From this day forward, this human shall be named Friend of the Throne. He shall be under the protection of the Empire. Any who harm him shall face the full might of our forces." The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered, some protested, but the Emperor's word was law. Took's hand and squeezed it tight. There were tears in her golden eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Still did not fully understand what had happened. He probably never would. But standing there, holding the hand of an alien princess while an emperor called him friend, he knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The celebration lasted 3 days. There was music and dancing and feasts that seemed to never end. People from across the empire came to see the resurrected princess and the strange human who had saved her, shook hands until his arm was sore. He answered the same questions 1,000 times. No, he did not have magic powers. Yes, he was just an ordinary person. No, he did not know how he did it. But while the empire celebrated, dark work was being done in the shadows. On the 4th day, Admiral came to with news. His face was grim. "We found them," he said, "the ones who poisoned the princess." They were nobles from a powerful family who wanted to weaken the emperor's line. They had planned to kill quietly, letting the hollowing do its work far from witnesses. Her death would have been blamed on an accident. No one would have known the truth. But survived, and now everyone knew about the plot. The emperor's justice was swift and final. The guilty nobles were arrested. Their family lost all its power and wealth. The message was clear. No one could harm the imperial family and escape punishment. That knight stood on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. The stars were different here, arranged in patterns he did not recognize. He had never felt so far from home. Found him there. "You are thinking about Earth," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, I miss it. I miss the mountains and the birds and the simple things." Stood beside him, looking out at the same stars. "My father wants you to stay. He believes your people have a gift that could change everything. Scientists want to study you. Healers want to learn from you. Politicians want to use you." Sighed, "I am just one person. I cannot help the whole galaxy." "No, but you can help your own people prepare for what is coming." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" His expression was serious. "The galaxy is not a safe place. There are empires out there that take what they want by force. There are species that would see humans as resources to be harvested. Now that your world has been discovered, you will have visitors. Some will be friendly, some will not." This was something he had been afraid of. "Can your empire protect Earth?" "We can, and we will because of what you did. But protection from outside is not enough. Your people need to grow stronger. They need to learn to prepare to find their place among the stars, and they need to do it quickly." Felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. He was nobody. How could he possibly help his entire species prepare for something this big? But then he remembered that night on the mountain. He had been nobody then too, just a man who saw someone in pain and reached out to help. Maybe being nobody was exactly what was needed. The next morning requested a meeting with the emperor. He stood in a smaller room this time, just the two of them, and no crowds, no ceremony. "You have something to say," observed. "Speak freely." Gathered his courage. "You offered me a choice before, stay here or return to Earth, but I have a different idea." "I am listening." "I want to go back to Earth, but not to hide. I want to help my people understand what is coming. I want to build a bridge between our worlds. Humans are not ready for the galaxy, but we can learn. We can grow. We just need time and help." The emperor nodded slowly. "And what would you need from us?" "Knowledge, teachers, protection while we find our feet, not conquest or control, just a chance to prove that we deserve a place among the stars." Smiled. It was the first time he'd seen him smile. "You ask for help while offering nothing in return." "I offer what I gave your daughter, the only thing I have, myself, my people, our strange gift for caring about strangers. Maybe that is not worth much to an empire that spans 17 systems, but it is all we have." The emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a deep, warm sound that filled the room. "You know what makes humans so interesting," he said. "You do not understand your own worth. You think compassion is common. You think reaching out to a dying stranger is normal. But I have lived for 300 years and ruled this empire for 2 centuries. I have seen countless species, and I have never, not once, encountered a people who love so freely and so foolishly as yours." He stood and walked too. "Go back to your world, prepare your people. I will send teachers and diplomats. I will extend the empire's protection over Earth. And when humanity is ready, you will take your place among the stars, not as subjects, not as servants, as partners." Bowed his head. "Thank you." There was one more surprise waiting. Stepped forward. "Father, I request permission to accompany to Earth." The emperor raised an eyebrow. "You wish to leave the palace, after everything that happened?" "I owe him a life debt. Our laws are clear. But more than that, I want to understand these humans. I want to learn how they became what they are. And perhaps in teaching them, I can remember what we have forgotten." Studied his daughter for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well, go with my blessing." 1 week later, and boarded a ship bound for Earth. It was smaller than the great warship, but still far beyond anything humans had built. Through the windows, the crystal city of the capital grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. They sat together in silence for a long time, then spoke. "Are you afraid of what comes next?" Nodded. "Yes, the world will be different now. People will be scared. Governments will fight over what to do. Everything I knew is going to change. Then why go back? He thought about that question. The answer came slowly, but it felt true. Because that is what humans do. We face the unknown. We reach out to strangers. We build connections where there were none before. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we make terrible mistakes, but we keep trying. He looked at, I did not save you because I am special. I saved you because I could not walk away from someone who needed help. That is not a gift. That is just who we are. Took his hand. Her skin was warm now, full of life that should have been stolen from her. Then maybe that is exactly the gift the galaxy needs. Earth appeared in the window, blue and green and white. It looked so small from out here, so fragile, but saw it differently now. He saw a world full of people who did not know their own power, people who helped strangers every day without thinking it was special, people who loved and cried and laughed and reached out to each other in the darkness. The galaxy was vast and cold and dangerous, but it had never met anything quite like humanity. Squeezed his hand, ready to change the world. Smiled, ready to try. The ship began its descent through the atmosphere, carrying a simple photographer and an alien princess toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the stars watched and waited to see what would happen next. Somewhere in the great tapestry of galactic history, a new thread was being woven. It was small and strange and full of impossible hope. It was human. And it was just beginning.